Welcome to part 3 of my 3-part watercolor series. On watercolor supplies, featuring my top picks in 3 budget categories: affordable basics, mid-range finds, and professional grade materials. Part 1 of the series showcased some awesome paper options, and yesterday's part 2 series was all about my favorite brush brand sets. And today I'm going to be focusing on watercolor paint options from both pan to tube paints. I will also show a sneak peek of my top favorite paint colors, as well as the way I have them arranged in my personal everyday palette. There is affordable supplies for everyone in the world of watercolors, and this is going to help ensure that you have the right tools to bring your artistic visions to life, no matter your experience level or financial budget. So let's just jump right into it here. First, I'm going to start off with some very affordable little half pan paint sets. These are terrific if you're just starting out with watercolor, want to give them a try without spending a lot of money. I actually really love these sets to use when I travel also. They are small, they're concise, they have a lot of colors, they come with a case with a built-in mixing tray, and some of these even come with little sheets of paper or brushes or other things. These first two are by Mei Liang. Terrific little paint kits. The blue set is literally like only $20. The purple set is a little bit more because it does come with more paint colors and more accessories. It's probably between $30 to $35 depending on if it happens to be on a sale. Terrific little paint kits and a huge step up from a Crayola set. This set is very similar to these other two. I just got this one a little while back and I like it a lot as well. This one has little half pans that are removable. It has a few metallic colors in here and a lot of paint mixing tray space. This comes in a super nice box with a brush rag in here too. I haven't used this set as much as the Mei Liang, but from what I have tried out, I can confidently recommend this. I actually have more in-depth tutorials on any of the paints and paint sets that you see today. I'll try to list those videos along with links in the description of this video if you're interested in looking into any of them further. Okay, next up, if you'd like to take the next step up to some tube paints but still don't want to spend a lot of money on them, here are a few really great tube paint kits. This first set actually is also made by Mei Liang. They used to have only the little pan sets that I showed you, but I liked those enough that when I heard that they had come out with some tube paints, I just had to give them a try, and they didn't disappoint. Lots of great colors in small little tubes. Now this next set is by the Mead & Company. I am a huge fan of their ceramic products, mostly their ceramic palettes, so I thought I'd test out the tube paints and see how they compare. This set came with fewer colors, but the tubes are slightly larger than the Mei Liang. My favorite color in this Mead & set was the rose color. Beautiful, beautiful color of pink. The Mei Liang sells sets of different amounts of colors from 36 to 48 colors for between $20 and $30. And this Mead & paint is actually about only $15 or $16. So really great prices on both of these and a terrific way to try out watercolor tube paints. I actually have one more little set of tube paints that I can also recommend, and this is by the Paul Rubens Company. The tubes are on the smaller side, but the colors are very good. This set is actually a little bit more on the expensive side though, selling for around $60. Now that does seem like a lot, but compared to the professional individual tube paints that you can get, this is still a pretty good deal. Keep in mind though, all of these sets so far are more on the amateur side of paints, and there are a ton of paint options out there. So much so that it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially when you're just starting out. Now these are some of my favorites, but the important part is that you find the right supplies and paints that you like and work the best for you. All right, let's move on to the more professional but also more expensive side of tube paints. I have two favorites to show: Daniel Smith, which is probably the majority of people's favorite watercolor paints, and then my personal favorite go-to paints, which is M. Graham & Company. Before I get too far into the paints themselves, we also need to talk about palettes really quick. With any of the tube paints that you get, whether the cheaper set or these individual professional tubes, you really need to have a palette with some small wells and mixing trays to put these in. Now, my first palette that I used for years and years and years was a plastic plastic palette. It came with a lid cover, which I really liked. It was nice and large, so I could fit a ton of colors in it. But after a while, the plastic started to get old and break down. I started getting cracks and chips in it, and the plastic palettes often tend to stain way more with the paint colors too. So a couple of years ago, I decided to switch to a ceramic palette. This is by the Mead & Company, and I can tell you I am a huge fan of their ceramic palettes. They have all sorts of different shapes and sizes so that you can pick the one that works best for you. This one was a little bit on the smaller side, so I did have to limit the colors to my absolute favorites. I like to take a little piece of artist tape and put it along the sides where I can write down every color name that I have in my wells, just so I know exactly what I have and where it is. Something good about the ceramic palettes too is that not only are they super sturdy and last a long time, they are also easier to clean off, and the paint colors don't stain the surface of the mixing area. Now, the paints I have in here are my M. Graham & Company paints. These are the paints that I learned watercolor painting with, so they're what I'm used to and what I know. I know the colors and how they work, and these paints stay soft for a very long time too. I think they have a little bit of honey in them, which probably helps with that, but I've had some of these colors in here for like 2 years, and they're still nice and soft, with the exception of this purple color right here. Now, I was going to maybe change this color out a while back, but I decided to leave it for a good teaching moment. This color is Mauve from a different brand. I think it's Grumbacher. I just liked the color, so this is what I put in my palette. But you can see that this paint dried up super hard, and it is also shrunk, leaving huge empty gaps and spaces around the edges. I don't think I've ever had that happen with my M. Graham paints. At some point, I plan to remove this mauve color and replace it with an M. Graham mineral violet color instead. As far as the Daniel Smith paints go, this is probably the most common brand of professional paints people use. They are good, high-quality paints, and one of the best benefits to this brand is that they have a ton of color options to choose from. These can also be a little bit of an investment. Their tubes usually range from $8 to $12, which initially seems cheaper than the M. Graham paints, which I will share with you in just a minute. But the tubes are about half the size. I would like to experiment more with the Daniel Smith paint colors sometime and see which colors are actually my favorites. Now, I get people asking me all the time what my favorite colors are and how I have them placed in my palette. So I'm just going to quickly go over that. I like to place my paints in here sort of like the color wheel, and I usually like to have at least 2 different variants of each color. I start with my yellows. First, I have Azo Yellow and then Gamboge. Then I move on to the greens, Sap Green, Hooker's Green, and Olive Green. I used to have a phthalo green in this spot actually, but I found myself more and more often using the olive green where I rarely used the phthalo green, so I actually changed that up a while ago. Now, moving on to the blues, I have Ultramarine Blue and Phthalo Blue. For the purples, I have Dioxazine Purple and Mauve that is in here now, but I am going to be changing it to Mineral Violet later. Then I have Cadmium Red, Alizarin Crimson, and Quinacridone Rose. Next up, I have Cadmium Orange, followed by my neutral colors, Raw Sienna, Burnt Umber, Payne's Gray, and Ivory Black. These are my absolute favorite go-to colors that never seem to fail me. I will occasionally buy new colors to try out, but I do tend to come back to these in the end. They look great, they mix great, and I just love them. They are a bit of an investment though. Each tube of paint can range from $12 to $20. The good news is that the tube sizes are quite large, so the paint does last for a very long time. I mean, I paint a lot, and I only have to replace my very most used tube paint colors maybe once every couple of years. The lesser used colors last me even longer than that. Well, I guess that's it for this watercolor paint supplies video. If you have paints that you enjoy using and would like to share with me or with other people watching this video, make sure you leave a comment and tell us what your favorites are. Hopefully some of the information was helpful today. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.